Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about the new movie, Death of a Unicorn. If you end up enjoying this video, please consider liking and subscribing. That way I can use the blood of a unicorn to heal all of my horrible sunburns from this weekend. The synopsis is as follows. When a man and his daughter accidentally hit and kill a unicorn with their car, his boss tries to exploit the creature's miraculous curative properties with horrific results. So without further ado, let's get into the 6 things that make a movie great. 1. The plot. This movie opens with Elliot and his daughter Ridley heading to a work retreat deep into the mountains for the weekend. Clearly there's some unspoken tension between the two, and during one of these moments Elliot accidentally hits a unicorn in the middle of the road. With this shocking discovery and horrifying development, Elliot decides to make sure that the unicorn is dead and ends up getting blood on both Elliot and Ridley in the process. They throw the unicorn in the back of their car to hide it, go up to the retreat, and start noticing that a lot of their conditions that they had prior have started getting healed because of the blood. The unicorn is found in the back of their car, and then all hell breaks loose as everyone tries to take advantage of this healing property that the unicorn has. But the longer they do that, the more horrifying things start to happen. For the most part, I really enjoyed the plot progression of this film. It's an incredibly unique story, and so getting to see something new and fresh on screen was awesome. For the most part, I enjoyed the ending of the film, although the very final moment was a little cheesy, and there were a couple spots that felt a little bloated. But other than that, I actually really enjoyed the story that this movie told, and it had my attention from start to finish. So for me, plot gets a thumbs up. 2 is family friendliness. Death of a Unicorn is rated R. There's a moderate bit of profanity, a mild amount of drug use, and a handful of graphically bloody and gory moments in the second half of the film. Definitely not a film suited for children, so for me, family friendliness gets a thumbs down. 3 is acting and script. I thought the cast of this movie was pretty cool. That being said, there wasn't really an acting performance that stood out to me as being better than all the rest, and I can't really talk about the rest without first talking about the script. One of the biggest things that held this movie back from being better was the script. This movie is advertised as a horror comedy, and it did try to be funny, but it just didn't really land. It never really felt like it got in a flow with its humor, and it tried a couple different angles that just didn't stick. I will say though that Will Poulter had some really funny moments near the end of the movie, but it took 3/4 of the movie for him to really catch his stride. I for sure thought I was going to see more Jenna Ortega in this movie, but it kind of felt like she took a backseat to all the other craziness that was going on. And the problem is that the dynamic between her and her father was supposed to be one of the biggest driving forces behind the movie, and it just wasn't. And probably the biggest thing that stood out to me in this area was Paul Rudd. For me, I was in this weird zone of saying either his character was written really poorly or Paul Rudd was miscast. Had his character been written well, I think Paul Rudd could have adjusted his acting and been a good fit for the role. But his performance felt out of place and poor during this film. Had these areas been shored up, I think that this movie would have been a lot better. But instead it had a bunch of random script moments that kind of stood out like sore thumbs and ended up not being that funny. So for me, acting and script get a 50-50. 4 is character development. There is not much character development in this movie, and that was really sad. Like I said before, the driving force behind this movie is the relationship between Ridley and her father Elliot. And if they had focused on actually developing that relationship and making it so much more heartfelt than it actually was, this movie could have been really good. But instead they just have Elliot be this pushover that doubts his daughter for the entire movie. There's no growth, there's no development, and then all of a sudden at the end of the movie he just is different. But you don't see or believe or feel any of that. And you can definitely tell that that element is missing in this movie because it was the core of the film and it just wasn't there. So for me, character development gets a thumbs down. 5 is visuals and CGI. There were a couple moments of CGI in this movie that were pretty bad, but most of this movie's visual effects and CGI happen in the second half of the film, and I'd say about 75% of it was passable and didn't challenge your willing suspense of disbelief. I've heard this movie compared to Cabin in the Woods quite a bit, and although I think this movie is a little bit better than that, it is pretty accurate. But all in all, I think the visuals and CGI did their job in this movie, and there were a couple pretty cool and unique moments. So for me, visuals and CGI get a 50-50. And 6 is rewatchability. Death of a Unicorn is an hour and 48 minutes long, and I think there were 1 or 2 moments where I felt like the movie felt a little bit long, just because it didn't really seem to get in a groove that really worked for it the entire way. Had this movie changed a bit of the script and instead developed more of the relationship between Elliot and Ridley, I think it would have flowed a lot better. And if that were the case, the runtime of this movie is just fine. Although it has quite a few flaws, it is very unique and it was really refreshing to see something like that on screen. So for me, rewatchability gets a thumbs up. With all these areas considered, I have to give Death of a Unicorn a 6 out of 10. This movie had a couple bad moments of CGI, some random script moments, some poor character writing, an absence of extremely important character development, and it never really got in its flow with its comedy. But it was an extremely unique idea with a very cool underlying story that had my attention from start to finish and ended relatively well. The truth is that this movie is not doing very well at the box office, and I was alone in the theater as I watched it. And that's pretty sad to me because that should not be the case. So with all that in mind, if you enjoy really unique concepts and you're itching to see a fresh movie on screen, you might enjoy watching Death of a Unicorn in theaters. You will have to overlook the flaws, but I had a fun time watching it. Thank you so much for watching. If you've seen Death of a Unicorn, please let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your love and support, and I'll catch you guys and gals in the next one.